Hello and welcome to New Mexico Rising. My name is Abby Max. On this week's show, we have this.
Working with my creative partner in this, John Redmond, we found this one box, and in it, Elvis has just recorded, unguarded, telling you about his life story. And we said, no talking heads in this. Let's just have Elvis come to you in a dream and tell you his story really unrestricted.
Classically, we hear stories of the severe pain that's often described as the worst pain you've ever had.
So for me, I used to deal with that anxiety and that worriness about when I meet somebody new, like when I go to shake their hand, how will they receive me? And then having to overall just navigate, like, how do I manage this on my own? Because for a long time I was doing that.
So the study showed that 60% of people didn't even know their heart disease risk, even though it's the #1 killer in Americans. It also showed that 50% of Gen Zers, so people under the age of 30, are actually worried about their heart, and they cited stress as the #1 risk factor. This population is very stressed out, they're feeling fatigued, they're not feeling themselves. And
social media was new, it was kind of a new frontier, it was the kind of Wild West though as well, and teenagers were experimenting with it, they were just putting their entire lives online. They didn't have the hindsight that we have now about kind of, what could possibly go wrong, but also it was an era where adults weren't really looking at social media, so nobody was kind of checking up on them, there were no sort of checks and balances, and that makes that generation of teenagers at that kind of time particularly unique. They're almost like the guinea pigs of social media.
And then followed by Rock You Like a Hurricane. The 80s were extremely good for the Scorpions, and with Wind of Change we topped it all in the early 90s, and those are 3 iconic songs which we still play live and which carried us through the decades, plus many other songs like Still Loving You, Big City Nights, whatever we have.
all that and more right here on New Mexico Rising.
More than 60 years of rock, and they're still filling arenas. From Rock You Like a Hurricane to Wind of Change, the Scorpions have sold over 110 million records and helped define rock for generations. Now they're heading back to Las Vegas for a brand new residency celebrating 6 decades of music. So joining us from Germany, we've got Klaus, Meine, and Matthias of Scorpions. It's great to have you both here. How are you?
Great.
Very good. How are you? Thanks for having
Good morning.
us.
I'm doing good. All right, it's been 60 years. That's one heck of a long time for pretty much any business. When you look back, what stands out most about the journey from those in the early days in Hanover to now headlining another Vegas residency?
Oh, it's crazy when you think about it, because for German band, when we started out in the early 70s, writing lyrics in English, it was a big dream, to say one day we'll play the United States. And when we had the chance to come over in 79 and throughout the 80s, this dream came true, and it's a wonderful thing after so many years that we're still together, still playing a global stage and, still rocking like a hurricane. And we can't wait to come back for another residency in Vegas in September, and hope many, many fans from all over the place will join us and see us there.
And songs, like you mentioned, Rock You Like a Hurricane, No One Like You, and Winds of Change, still connect with a new audience. What do you think gives those songs that staying power?
I mean, first of all, with No One Like You, I think we were in 1982 with a Blackout tour. We were the most played radio song on rock radio, at least, and gave us the headline status in the States touring, and then followed by Rock You Like a Hurricane. The 80s were extremely good for the Scorpions, and with Wind of Change, we topped it all in the early 90s, and those are 3 iconic songs which we still play live and which carried us through the decades, plus many other songs like Still Loving You, Big City Nights, whatever we have. And all those greatest hits we will play on stage at the Residency in Vegas.
Yes, Vegas has become a home base for you. The last couple of years, and I think we talked last year, what makes this residency different from the previous runs you've done?
We have to find out. I mean, we are still on the 60th anniversary tour. We will always play the greatest hits because there's such a great demand from the fans. but we have time enough to think about something very special.
So when you build the set list for a show like this, how do you balance the massive hits with some of the deeper cuts and maybe even some new material?
They have to be a good balance, you know, because there's so many songs that the fans want to hear, definitely, you know, and so we throw in songs also from Rock Believer, our latest album, you know, so like songs like Gas in the Tank, but also all-time classics like The Zoo, Loving You Sunday Morning, Tease Me, Please Me, you know, all these rockers, and a couple beautiful ballads like Send Me an Angel are in the set as well, you know, so many songs we just have to play, and then we think about on digging deep into some other material we haven't played for quite a while.
So after 6 decades, what still excites you about walking on stage and hearing that crowd?
The fans. I mean, it's a roar of the audience. The minute you go out, you might be nervous before you walk out on stage, but the minute you see the fans, you're connected and it clicks, you know, and together we have a magic evening, rocking out like crazy. And especially in Vegas, there couldn't be a better place to celebrate 60 years of Scorpions.
Hey, I want to thank you two for joining me today. Scorpions coming home to Las Vegas. 60 plus years of Scorpions kick off this fall at PH Live at Planet Hollywood Resort and Casino. Tickets are on sale now. Get them at Ticketmaster.com/ScorpionsVegas. If you ever wanted to hear those anthems live in one room, this is your chance. I want to thank you two one more time for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
And enjoy. Have a good day.
Some stories don't fade with time, especially when they involve trust, friendship, and betrayal. The new 3-part Hulu docuseries, Friends Like These, The Murder of Skylar Neese, revisits the 2012 disappearance of a West Virginia teenager and the shocking truth that followed. It's a story told through social media, personal interviews, and voices closest to the case. So joining us this morning are director Claire Titley and former FBI agent and polygraph examiner Dr. Rob Ambrosino. Thank you two for being here. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
All right, Claire, what stood out to you about this case and what made you feel like it needed to be revisited now, more than a decade later?
I think one of the things that made me that was so kind of shocking about this case when I first kind of looked at it was the fact that it's 2012 and it's quite a unique era in a way for social media, because it was that era where social media was new. It was kind of a new frontier. It was the kind of Wild West though as well. And teenagers were experimenting with it. They were just putting their entire lives online. They didn't have the hindsight that we have now about kind of, you know, what could possibly go wrong. But also it was an era where adults weren't really looking at social media. So nobody was kind of checking up on them. There were no sort of checks and balances. And that makes that generation of teenagers at that kind of time particularly unique. They're almost like the guinea pigs of social media.
And the series used Skylar's own words and social media posts that you said. How did that storytelling change the ways this story unfolds for viewers?
I think it was really important to us to try and give Skylar a voice. We didn't want her to just be a kind of a plot point in a true crime, you know, where she's just the kind of victim and has no voice. We really wanted her to have agency in telling her own story, which is harder than it sounds, you know, obviously when she's gone. But she left behind this incredible sort of archive of tweets, of digital messages, but also her own writing as well. So we worked very closely with her parents to make sure that we could just bring her voice kind of front and center, and that she could at least be a part of telling this story from the inside out. So we interview her friends as well, quite comprehensively, so that we can hear this story from the 16-year-old perspective, including Skylar herself.
And Dr. Ambrosino, you spent 24 years with the FBI. You've conducted thousands of polygraph exams. When you look at this case, what role did interviewing and behavioral analysis play in getting the truth?
Well, interviewing really played a significant role. And long before I became involved in the case, the two young girls, they were interviewed by case agents, state troopers, local police investigators. And during that process, you kind of started seeing this evolution of what really should be fact, right? You know, when things are fact, it doesn't change, right? The truth is the truth, and it's always going to be the truth. But there were indications during these interviews that really did result in kind of like this evolution of their story. And of course, when that happens, you know, the logical investigation is, why is this person changing that story, right? So this case is kind of about the behavior that's exhibited, the ideation, what's going on, what are they thinking, and how are they communicating? And that really speaks to the social media that you have here, which again was kind of in its infancy stage, if you will, compared to what it is now. So really, a lot of it did come down to the really significant interviews that the investigators were doing.
And one of the most unsettling aspects is how normal these friendships appeared on the surface. How does this case reveal about the hidden conflict, and especially among teenagers?
I think I think what we really wanted to do with this series was kind of remind people what it's like to be 16. It's very easy to forget when you become an adult, you know, and put that behind you. But about the fact that when you are that age, your brain behaves in such a way that, you know, your friends become much more important than your parents, than your family. Everything is very heightened. Your reasoning is off, if you like. Your idea of consequences, you know, is very different to that of an adult. And when you have that combined with social media that is completely I say unregulated, but unwatched by anybody else, that's where the kind of combination was kind of so dangerous, really, I think, particularly for that generation who didn't have the hindsight that we have now.
And Claire, after someone watches all 3 episodes, what do you hope stays with them?
I hope people do reflect on their own use of sort of social media, on their children, on their family as well, and remember what it's like to be that age. But also, I hope that they come away from this feeling like they know Skylar, and you know, she would have turned 30 just a few weeks ago. So that's a life that she didn't have. And she should have gone to college. She wanted to be a lawyer. You know, there's all this life that didn't happen. And I'd love for people to come away knowing and remembering Skylar as she was.
Hey, I want to thank you two for joining me today. Friends Like These, The Murder of Skylar Neese, with all 3 episodes available to stream now on Hulu. I want to thank you two for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Heart disease is still the leading cause in death in the United States. Millions of Americans take statins to help lower their cholesterol, but many may not know how those medications can affect CoQ10, an important enzyme for heart health. Dr. Tanya Elliott is a dual board certified physician in internal medicine and immunology. She's joining us to explain new research and what it means for patients. Welcome, Dr. Elliott.
Thanks for having me.
First, what is CoQ10 and why is it important to heart health?
So CoQ10 is a compound that our muscles need in order to create energy and for our muscles to function. And the highest concentration of coenzyme Q10 is in the heart. And we also have CoQ10 in other muscles in our body, but lots of times people forget your heart's not an organ, it's actually a muscle, and it needs a heck of a lot of energy. Now, coenzyme Q10 actually goes down with age. We stop producing it as much with age. It also goes down when you take statins. And statins are super important medications that people with heart disease are on because it helps to lower cholesterol levels really effectively. But it also inadvertently lowers those CoQ10 levels, which is why it's important to have awareness around that and then talk about healthy ways to get CoQ10 into our body, because people who are on CoQ10 actually have better cardiac outcomes.
And you're sharing new study results. What did the study find?
So the study was conducted by Doctors Best, and it wanted to look at the general population's understanding of heart disease risk, and also whether or not people had awareness of this being on a statin, which is super important, and we want you to stay on, but how it can impact those CoQ10 levels. So the study showed that 60% of people didn't even know their heart disease risk, even though it's the #1 killer in Americans. It also showed that 50% of Gen Zers, so people under the age of 30, are actually worried about their heart, and they cited stress as the #1 risk factor. This population is very stressed out. They're feeling fatigued. They're not feeling themselves. And 17% of those Gen Z survey respondents were actually on a statin for high cholesterol. And very few people knew anything about this association between being on a statin, which is important for our heart, but the low coenzyme Q10 levels that are associated with that.
And what steps can people take to lower the risk of heart disease?
First things first is awareness, right? And even understanding what my lifetime risk is of heart disease. And so going with your doctor for your annual physical exam, but then also asking, hey, are there other tests besides just having my general cholesterol levels checked or checked for diabetes or high blood pressure? What else can I do to determine and understand my lifetime heart disease risk? There are other tests. There's blood tests that are available. There's even imaging studies that could look at whether or not there's plaque buildup in your heart, right? So you could have a general understanding of how high risk you really are. And then the second piece is understanding if you are on a statin, understanding that those CoQ10 levels can go down. And the highest concentration of CoQ10 in the diet is from organ meat. So oftentimes people are like, oh, I don't want to eat that, but I would consider a supplement. And so that's something you want to talk with your doctor about. Is CoQ10 supplementation right for you?
And where could people go for more information?
So to learn more about CoQ10 and then just about heart disease in general and about the study, check out doctorsbest.com.
Dr. Elliott, thank you for coming on our show and talking with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If your hands are always itchy and cracked and irritated, it might be more than just dry skin. Experts say 1 in 10 adults could be living with chronic hand eczema, also called CHE. Here with us are Dr. Omar Noor, a board-certified dermatologist, and Jennifer Etienne, who lives with CHE and advocates for patients. Welcome and thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. Noor, what are the signs that eczema might actually be chronic hand eczema?
So the important thing to recognize is that eczema and chronic hand eczema are in fact two different diseases. And when you have red, cracked, itchy, and sometimes even painful hands that are relapsing, coming again and again, or even lasting for more than 3 months at one time, you may in fact have chronic hand eczema as opposed to the eczema that you might be feeling over the rest of your body.
And what can trigger flare-ups or make symptoms worse?
There's a lot of different triggers, and different patients can have different triggers. We see chronic hand eczema very frequently on certain occupations, healthcare workers, people that work a lot with their hands, food preparers, hairdressers, mechanics. There's different environmental stimuli, and unfortunately, even just stress can make your hands flare.
And why do so many people miss the signs or get misdiagnosed?
It's sometimes very much a delay in diagnosis. Either the patient themselves think they, in fact, just have dry skin and they power through it, they deal with the pain, they deal with the discomfort, or on our side, sometimes the presentation of chronic hand eczema varies from patient to patient. It can even be blistering in the hands. It can be just little cracks in the fingertips. It presents very differently and sometimes is just not diagnosed appropriately from even a dermatologist.
And Jennifer, can you tell us about your experience living with the chronic hand eczema?
For me, my experience has been just being very cautious, super paranoid about the things that I use or letting other people touch me because, you know, they may be wearing something that could potentially trigger a flare up for me. And then dealing with the insecurity of how my skin looks because my skin is broken, inflamed, itchy, super scaly and dry. So for me, I used to deal with that anxiety and that worriness about when I meet somebody new, like when I go to shake their hand, how will they receive me? And then having to overall just navigate, like, how do I manage this on my own? Because for a long time I was doing that.
And how did it impact your daily life and your confidence?
For me, my confidence was affected because I live in Florida and it's super hot all the time, but I've grown so accustomed to like covering up my skin, but on my hands, that's super hard to do. So it affected how I dress. I found myself just covering up so that I would not be the focus, that when people are looking at me, like they're not noticing my hands. And that for me was, as a girl, it's kind of hard because, you know, you want to wear certain things and then you're limited to it because you don't want to deal with the stares. And for me, that made me super insecure. It affected my confidence to the point where it's just like super hard for me to figure out, like, how do I make myself feel beautiful, even though my skin does not look like what society would call beautiful.
And what would you say to someone who thinks they might have it?
I would say, first of all, you're not alone in this. And if the symptoms are persistent, so you're experiencing inflammation, itch, dryness, super scaly skin, those are just some of the symptoms. But if that's consistent and it's affecting like your work and also your relationships, it's super important for you to go and see a dermatologist. That way you can get a proper diagnosis and then you can get a treatment plan. So that way you can get the relief that your hands are looking for.
And Dr. Noor, where can viewers go to learn more or find help?
So it's very important to go reach out, find your dermatologist. And if you're looking for more information, you can look online at www.learnaboutche.com. And that's CHE for chronic hand eczema.
Jennifer, Dr. Noor, thank you both for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Kidney stones can be very painful. In fact, more than 500,000 people go to the ER each year because of them. Since March is National Kidney Month, we are learning the signs to watch out for and what treatments are available. We're joined by Dr. Jared S. Winokur, a urologist based in New York City, and kidney stone patient Crystal Jefferson. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Dr. Winokur, what are kidney stones and what symptoms should people look for?
Yeah, great question. Kidney stones are actual rocks. They are rocks formed from the minerals that are typically dissolved in your urine. They will grow up in the kidney, and then eventually they will move and block the drainage of your kidney. And then you can have some pretty severe symptoms. Classically, we hear stories of the severe pain that's often described as the worst pain you've ever had. It's not uncommon to see patients also have blood in the urine, severe nausea, vomiting, perhaps even a fever suggesting an infection. And it is also worth noting that not all kidney stones will cause symptoms. We actually detect many incidentally, say on a CAT scan or a sonogram performed for another reason. And as a result, we are afforded with an opportunity to potentially treat them in advance of those symptoms that I mentioned. So very, very common situation. If you're listening and you haven't had a stone, I'm sure you know someone with it. 1 in 10 people will be affected in their lifetime, and it affects people of all ages and genders.
And what treatment options are available today? And how is the new CVAC system changing the patient experience?
Sure. So when a treatment is warranted, there are some really wonderful minimally invasive treatments out there that we will offer to our patients. The challenge with these treatments to varying degrees is that they can leave behind pieces of stone. Those stones themselves can further grow back into bigger stones and cause those problems and symptoms I mentioned. Where the CVAC really differentiates itself, this new technology, is that it's able to, in all-in-one minimally invasive treatment, go up into the kidney. We can break the stone into small pieces, but importantly, we can actually suction and vacuum out all of those pieces that would otherwise be potentially left behind and potentially cause an issue for the patients in the future. So it really is a game changer, at least in my personal practice and for my patients.
And Crystal, can you tell us about your experience living with kidney stones?
I'm happy to tell you about my experience. In 2009, I was a patient in the emergency room because I was vomiting and I was in excruciating pain. The kidney stone passed, however, I kept having recurring kidney stones. I knew something was wrong when my back just started to hurt and when I would stand up for a long period of time or drive for a long period of time. So I sought out a specialist, Dr. Winokur. Dr. Winokur explained to me about my staghorn stone, kidney stone, which is a serious one. And he gave me various options. The option I chose to go with was the CVAC system. He said I was a good candidate for it, and my body did respond well to it.
And what was it like having the treatment with the CVAC system? And what would you tell someone going through this?
Going through the treatment, it was on an outpatient basis, so I didn't have to be admitted to the hospital. I did have to take anesthesia, so I was out the same day, and my recovery period was very good as well. I was able to get back to standing on my feet for a long time, taking long drives. I would recommend to anyone, definitely speak to your urologist and seek out a doctor that is going to offer you credible options. The CVAC system is something that's new, but don't be afraid of new things, of new tools.
And Dr. Winokur, where can people go for more information?
Yeah, if not seeking out a healthcare professional or a urologist, there's a great resource online called surewithcvac.com. Of course, has great information not only on CVAC, but all treatment options available to you if you have kidney stones. So we encourage you to visit that.
And Crystal, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And Dr. Winokur, thank you for coming on the show and talking with us.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having us.
What if you could experience Elvis in a way you've never seen or heard before? A new cinematic event from director Baz Luhrmann brings rare footage, restored performances, and unheard recordings together in something that's not quite a documentary and not just a concert film. It's called Epic, Elvis Presley in Concert. Baz Luhrmann joins us now to talk about his new big screen experience. Baz, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, Dan, and I love the way you described it as a cinematic event, because people are having trouble to sort of say what it is. That's what it is. This weekend, 1,900 screens all over the US. Get out and have a cinematic event, because that's what we tried to do. That's what Elvis is.
And during the making of Elvis, you went searching for rumored lost concert footage, and actually found dozens of boxes that hadn't been seen in decades. What did that discovery like for you?
Oh my God! Literally, we thought we'd find a reel, and we went down to these salt mines in Kansas City where they stored negative. Bang! There's 65 boxes. And 1635, some 8mm. And Peter Jackson helps us bring it back to us to a level of quality. I mean, just get to the biggest screen you can in your town. It's in every town this weekend. Just get out there and see it, because it is actually, I've seen it enough now. People like applaud during it, they dance during it. This is a movie you can really bother the other patrons, you know, bother them with your noise and your energy, because that's what it's for.
And this isn't simply a restored concert film. You described it as almost a cinematic poem. How did you approach shaping Elvis's life story through this dreamlike concert experience?
Well, when I was working with my creative partner in this, Residency, we found this one box, and in it, Elvis is just recorded, unguarded, telling you about his life story. And we said, no talking heads in this. Let's just have Elvis come to you in a dream and tell you his story really unrestricted, and music and sing along and concert moments, and he rocks out in it. Now sonically it's in 5/1. Everyone just says it sounds like it was recorded today, you know, and the audiences are reacting like that. This is the concert, the world tour that Elvis never actually had. He dreamed of having one. He never got outside the US. As we're speaking, he's in 5,000 screens all around the world right now.
And for audiences who think they already kind of know Elvis or absolutely loved your film from 2022, what makes Epic a completely different experience on the big screen?
I go on YouTube and just see what fans are saying. They'll tell you. They're going like, I thought I knew him, and now, but it's his humor. He's so goofy. He's so disarming. And then just you see him creating the music. Like you see him take a song like Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon and Garfunkel, and turn it into this like gospel powerhouse song. And, you know, he's so unpredictable. And I think people are, even hardcore fans are going like, one guy said, he said it beautifully. He said, you know, this is the film that Elvis always dreamed of making, but 50 years after his death, he's finally in it.
Baz, I want to thank you for joining me today. Epic Elvis Presley in Concert is in theaters now. You can find showtimes and tickets at your local theater and experience Elvis like never before. Baz, it's been a pleasure to have you on here, my friend.
Yes, my man. You're cool.
Thank you for tuning in and checking us out here on New Mexico Rising. If you're a fan of the show and want to know what's going on behind the scenes, follow us on social media. We're at New Mexico Rising on Facebook and Instagram. Also, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Mexico Rising. Thank you again for joining us right here on New Mexico Rising.